I challenge you to take a look at the words that you're using and the way that you are defining them. Hi all, it's Sarah Emond with Essence Healing. Today I wanted to talk about the power of words. You know the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me? Yeah, I don't agree with that. Words can keep us trapped in old beliefs, in old emotions. The way that we see words, the way that we define words, can keep us trapped. And everybody can define the same word differently or interpret it differently. I run across this all the time. I'll say something to a client and they'll get really offended or defensive depending on what their response is. And we have to dig into what does that word mean to them, because to me it can be a very powerful, very uplifting, very loving word, but for them it brings about emotions of depressed or despair, of being trapped, of being held back. They're interpreting it in a completely different way. Wording, and in and of itself, is a very basic communication level, and we can't always get across what we're trying to say using words. So my question for you today is, are you allowing how you see a word or how you define a word to hold you back? Is it keeping you stuck in a certain place because you are defining yourself using that word, or you feel like somebody else is defining you using that word, and you're allowing them and their definition of that word to hold you in your place? Just something to really stop and think about. Let me give you a quick example. A client who is a stay-at-home mom, and that definition for her of stay-at-home mom was very defined, very almost like a 1950s stay-at-home mom. I have to have a meal on the table for my husband. I have to make sure the house is picked up and spotless. I have to make sure that everything is perfect. And that was her definition of stay-at-home mom. And it was keeping her very unhappy because she loves being a stay-at-home mom. She loves staying home with her daughter, but she doesn't like the rest of the pieces that go with her definition or her interpretation of what the wording stay-at-home mom means. And this is where she was allowing that word, that definition, to hold her back. Once we talked about what being a stay-at-home mom could be, a different definition, what my definition of a stay-at-home mom is versus what she was seeing it as. Once I challenged her to look at the definition and define it for herself, not using my definition, not using this old definition that she picked up from books or movies or wherever that came from, but defining it for herself, she was able to reestablish that word as being very positive. And the changes that she's made just in the last week since we had this conversation is amazing. The things that she's doing with her daughter, plus spending time playing on the floor with her, taking her out and going shopping and doing other things that she really enjoys. Her whole life has opened up and her whole happiness piece has changed just because of the definition of her wording. And that's why I wanted to point this out to you, because I feel like it's really important. I feel like we get stuck oftentimes in a word because it's our definition or our interpretation of that word. And when we can just look at that word and we can redefine it for ourselves, that is when we have those breakthroughs and we can move forward. If you feel like you are stuck, maybe it's a wording definition or maybe it's something else, but I'd be happy to do a session with you and help you figure it out and help you move forward. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.